My name is Peter Miron. I'm Senior Vice President in charge of the Innovation, Research, and Development team. Thank you for joining us today. Wildfires, floods, hurricanes. Extreme weather has impacted Canadians in ways that would seem unimaginable just a few years ago. With climate change, the question of extreme weather is no longer an if, but a when. This has impacted Canadians from coast to coast. This past summer, I had the chance to have a long chat with someone who, under brighter times, would have been called a digital nomad. Unfortunately, these were not brighter times. A resident of West Kelowna, she was forced to flee with her laptop, her phone, and her family as the mandatory evacuation orders took effect as a result of the encroaching wildfires. Fortunately, her neighborhood was safe, and so was her family. Others weren't so fortunate. This is real. But we can help. Underneath many of our solutions, like MobileScapes and VisitorView, are vast reservoirs of data. The core design of our off-the-shelf solutions have been built around brighter time questions. Marketing questions like, where are my tourists coming from? Who visits my parks? Who sees my out-of-home displays? But these solutions can be adapted or customized for the purposes of understanding during times of crisis. When are certain neighborhoods evacuating? What supports do they need? And where are they evacuating to? All of these insights, derived from MobileScapes, VisitorView, DemoStats, and our behavioral databases, are built using anonymized, aggregated, privacy-by-design compliant methods in order to study populations. Together, we can proactively help communities and governmental agencies prepare to assist the impacted populations. We can also assist them during the recovery. We can help. We, as an industry, can help. And through partners like KPMG, we can turn these data and insights into action. In this session, we'll be delving into the use of mobile analytics to assist with wildfire response efforts. The case study focuses on the McDougall Creek fire in Kelowna. First observed on August 15th, lingering firefighting efforts continue to this day, now just over 5 weeks later. These methods could be equally applied to many other emergency events. Today, you'll be hearing from Eugene Chan. Eugene has over 12 years of advisory experience in both KPMG's deal advisory and management consulting practices, where he has provided financial, commercial, operational due diligence, and corporate and operational strategy services in a variety of sectors. Eugene's current focus is to apply KPMG's data and analytics platform within the deal advisory environment to address and analyze business trends, identify opportunities and support value creation, and investigate investment considerations for each transaction in industry. This work involves applying a range of descriptive and predictive analytics, utilizing both internal and external data, proprietary and third-party tools, and machine learning AI models to derive insights at deal speed. Please join me in welcoming Eugene.
Thanks, Peter. I'm happy to be here to chat with you today on a very interesting and what we think is very exciting use of a partnership between us and some of the great Environics data that we have access to now. Part of our practice that we have is, we support some of our clients who are municipalities, governments, communities, to really help them strategize and plan for situations around disasters. So that could be droughts, that could be wildfires, flooding. And really, as we were doing some of this work, it became clear that a lot of the data that we have access to through Environics could really help us bring more insights to our clients around helping them understand and answer key questions that they have as they think about how to respond to these types of disaster situations. So, some of the key questions that we're trying to answer here with our clients is, who's impacted during these disasters? If there's a certain community that is impacted, how can we understand who's living there, the characteristics and demographics about them, and that is really all going to be used so that we can understand what exactly is needed to provide adequate care and protection for that community. And the other question that often comes up is around planning group lodging sites, evacuation centers. Where should we be providing these facilities so that people feel comfortable accessing them? Oftentimes people will travel to communities outside of their own, and under stressful circumstances, it'll probably be likely that they will want to travel to places that are more familiar to them so that they're comfortable. And so, when we look at answering all these questions, a lot of the historical data that we can get through our partnership with Environics can be very useful to understand community travel patterns, both during and outside of evacuation scenarios. And so as part of the work that we do here also is, really trying to understand unique needs of a population, for example. And so in doing that, this really helps us help strategize with our clients, what are some things that you might need to be thinking about as you plan out group lodging sites, for example. So some of the things that we look at as an example are things like, how many families with young children might there be in this particular community that is evacuating? How many seniors are there that in that community as well? Are there, a significant indigenous population? Are there people with mobility issues? And frankly, all of these things are factors that will feed the strategy in terms of different things that you might have to think about as you're planning a site. So if you have a lot of families with young children, do you have to have high chairs and cribs and toys for that evacuation center? If you have a lot of seniors, are there specific things that you might need to cater to their needs? Access to prescriptions, railings in the bathrooms, things like that. Indigenous communities also have specific needs as well. One of the things that came up was, specific storage locations for their cultural items that they have with them. And then obviously with mobility issues, some sites might be better set up to handle, folks that have needs for wheelchair access and things like that. So, in order to do this, we realize demostats can contribute a lot of information here to help us understand the makeup of the population. The community health data that is out there was great to identify sort of populations that might have mobility issues, just general kind of poor health that we would have to worry about. And then, as Peter mentioned, the geolocation data was great to understand the physical movement of the communities, to really understand how far people are traveling, where are they traveling, and therefore where should we be looking to kind of set up potential evacuation and group lodging sites to serve the community who's evacuating. So this is an example of kind of the data that we were using. In this case, we were able to kind of identify the residents of a specific area. So again, we were looking at the Kelowna area, and all the yellow dots in that area were dissemination areas of residents that we wanted to track to where they evacuated to over the course of August 14th to August 20th when the evacuation orders were issued. So we can see all the yellow dots of where essentially their residential house was, and then all the purple dots were on this day, on August 14th, where did they travel to during that time? So here we can kind of see a number of them going up and down, the Okanagan Valley to Vernon, Penticton, and a number of people traveling also to, larger city centers, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. And as I scan forward, you can kind of see as we go day by day, you're going to see the dots get larger as the volume of evacuees gets larger, and it really culminated on August 18th, where we saw the highest volume of people sort of evacuating from that wildfire area. Now, the beauty of all the Environics data is, again, it's all tied together by PRISM, and so that allows us to really understand when we want to slice and dice that data a little bit farther, we can introduce things like income, for example, and try to look at patterns to see, are there differences in the way people travel depending on income levels? And here, if we look at the chart, for example, over time, and then separated it out by wealth, we can see that, over the number of days from the 14th to the 20th, most of the evacuees happened around the 17th, 18th, kind of stabilized by the 19th in terms of the numbers of people that left. But we thought it was interesting that we could actually see, if we look at that top row, which was the wealthiest kind of segments that we had, a number of them actually left, a day earlier than kind of the rest of the population, which we thought was an interesting trend as well. And then if we look at something like average distance traveled, for example, again here by the different income levels, one of the things that we saw, if you look generally left to right, like the higher the income, it seems like you tend to travel farther, as you can see by the sort of like median lines as you go across the chart. And the other thing we noticed is that if you look at the bars within each segment, as the days go by, the later that you travel, so on the 20th, the last bar in each segment, those were the farthest distances traveled by the evacuees, which kind of makes sense because if you leave early, there's probably closer accommodations that you can get to, but if you're sort of traveling later on during the evacuation time, you probably have to go a little bit farther so that, because all of the closer accommodations might be filled up. So that was an interesting thing we saw as well. The wealthy segment on the very far left was a bit of an anomaly, which was interesting. We could see that there's a bar there that, on day 2, they actually traveled a very far distance. So again, it seems like, if you have the means, you could probably get out early, you could probably travel farther, and then those with kind of the lower income don't travel as far, probably have fewer options. And those are the folks that, if you're a province or a government trying to figure out what you need to set up, that's probably the segment you're probably going to have to focus on a little more. And so again, because the Environics data is beautifully connected, we could also leverage the demo stats and the community health data sets here and really understand what is the makeup of the population of these evacuees across those different dimensions we were looking at to help us strategize. So for example here, we knew that of all the evacuees that left on August 18th, 37% of them had young children with the families. 14% of them, were estimated to be seniors, 70 plus. 70% of them were identified as indigenous, and 12% of them had mobility issues. And so this was information that would be, extremely useful for our clients in this space as they think about, okay, how do they need to outfit their evacuation centers? What facilities do they need to have? And really key in the strategic planning of serving their community as best they can. So I was hoping to have like a Tableau thing here, but that wasn't part of the capabilities here. But maybe if I go back to this map, you can kind of use your imagination here. But we could also further slice and dice the data by different things. And one thing we noticed that was interesting was if we were to kind of filter this map by the different segments again, if we just imagine we'll only put the kind of wealthier segments on, you would notice that a lot of the travel would be up and down the Okanagan, but also to Vancouver. But if you were to flip that for kind of the lower income segments, you would actually see that a lot of the travel was not to Vancouver. There wasn't a lot of travel that happened there, and it was much more localized around the sort of like area around the east of Kelowna. And there was actually a big dot that showed up around, I think, what was Big White at the time, because we actually knew that Big White opened up their resort for evacuees as a good gesture. So I think a lot of the folks would have taken advantage of that as well. So all to say that, I think there's a great partnership opportunity that we have here to leverage this data, work with provinces and municipalities to plan and really help them develop, really fulsome strategies to help, serve their communities in the most effective manner, and really try to, help, I guess, avoid what happened in Yellowknife. I think, one of the big headlines I saw in the news, that about the Yellowknife evacuation was there wasn't that much planning that happened. And, with data like this, with services that we can provide and advice that we can provide with our clients, I think we can hopefully alleviate a lot of the sort of stress and minimize the impact to people impacted by these natural disasters. So I think that's all we had prepared. If anybody has questions, happy to field any questions.